Welcome to Reading the Bible Together, and today we're in Genesis chapter 4, and here we read of the consequences of the rebellion of Adam and Eve, which has infected not only the ground, but their own offspring. Cain, the firstborn, is followed by Abel. They take on different roles. Cain is a farmer, Abel is a shepherd. And we read, in the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The language is careful and intentional. Cain brings some of his crop, Abel brings the first fruits. Or another way, Cain brings what's left over, but Abel gives off the top. Those fat portions were the ones that had the greatest nutritional value. Cain, in other words, gives grudgingly, perhaps resentfully and out of obligation. Abel gives willingly, generously, and out of gratitude. He's in right relationship with God. As a result, we read, the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. There's a whole sermon here about how it isn't so much what we give, but the attitude behind how we give that is important. Jesus preached this sermon when watching a widow place a small amount in an offering plate in the story we call the widow's mite. We covered that in Reading the Gospels Together, which you can still watch on our website. But back to our story. As a result of God's reaction, Cain sulks. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now, as with the story of the serpent in the previous chapter, sin is personified, this time as a dangerous animal crouching and ready to pounce. We must presume from the context of the previous chapter that Cain was already listening to whispers, that he knew that his offering was inadequate, but who's going to know? Well, once again, God turns out, not surprisingly, to be correct. Sin was indeed crouching at the door, and Cain invited it right in. And the next thing you know, disaster strikes. We read, "Now Cain said to his brother Abel, 'Let's go out to the field.' While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him." Well, note that this is what we would classify as premeditated murder rather than a spontaneous impulsive act. Note also that nothing is said regarding the method of murder or the murder weapon itself. Tradition has it that Cain struck his brother in the head or neck with the jawbone of an ass, but the Bible is silent on that point. The first reference to the jawbone theory is in a 7th century sermon, long after the story had first been told. It's always important to read what is actually in the Bible rather than what tradition has laid over top of it. It's noteworthy that the word Cain in Hebrew means spear. Maybe that's a clue on how Abel is killed. In any case, the result is the same. Abel is dead, murdered by his own brother. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Now remember how the root of temptation modeled by the serpent is lies. And now Cain carries that tradition forward. "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" Well, there's a couple layers in this response. Remember when God asked Adam where he was, and Adam responds by admitting, "I was hiding." At least Adam was telling the truth. Cain just tells an outright lie. A second layer is in the wording, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Keeper is the same Hebrew word used back in chapter 2 when Adam and Eve are told to work and guard, or same word, work or keep, the garden. Cain is rejecting the thought of having any responsibility for guarding or keeping anything, even his brother. Now, Cain's sin, ingratitude, resentment, jealousy, even murder itself is compounded by lying and now by abdicating responsibility, which was the only job other than being fruitful that he had been given. And that's food for thought for us all. In what areas of our life and world have we abdicated responsibility? Well, God is, of course, not fooled. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, the blood of your brother cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Now, the wording in Hebrew, which we miss in translation, is powerful and amazing. The word for blood is dam. The word for brother is ahadam. Ground is adamah. And so it reads, "The dam of ahadam from adamah cries out to me." You see how that builds. Dam, ahadam, adamah. Cain will not be able to escape the consequences of his sin or the memory of his brother. Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Whoever finds him, well, note that Cain is speaking of other people elsewhere. He's not anticipating going out into the world and being utterly alone. No, he's afraid of when other people find him. You see, although we presume that the world is at this point of the story comprised only of Adam and Eve, the now dead Abel, and the exiled Cain, the Genesis story makes no such assumptions. It's detailing for us only a representative fragment of the world, much as a movie about, say, the forming of Canada will not tell the story of every Canadian elsewhere, but will, in order to tell the big picture, will focus narrowly on a small number of key characters and events. In the same way, Genesis is telling the key representative moments of a much larger picture of many other people, many other lives. Once we put this into our head, we can stop worrying about where Cain finds a wife who bears him a son, Enoch, for whom Cain establishes a city. Obviously not a city for one person, Enoch, but a central location from where others will come and gather. The story continues its narrow focus, primarily focusing on the children of Cain and their descendants. Some of these descendants are given credit for the beginnings of various aspects of civilization, tent-dwelling animal husbandry folk, musicians, metal workers, and such. But the stain of Cain's sin still lingers. A certain Lamech brags about killing a man, a young boy actually, for just wounding Lamech or perhaps just daring to touch him. Lamech kills him for this offense. "Should anything happen to me as a result," says Lamech, perhaps others will come and pursue Lamech for having killed this other person. Lamech says, "Should anything happen to me, kill 77 in revenge." Which is to say, go to war to avenge me. So not only do we have metal workers and musicians, now we have the establishment of war. So is the world set upon the path of violence and retribution. The story is answering the big question, when did all these troubles start? Well, the chapter ends with a return to the story of Adam and Eve. They have another son, Seth. Sadly, Eve proclaims, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel since Cain killed him." What a painful statement. Cain's murder of Abel is known to Adam and Eve. Well, the name Seth means appointed or placed, or in this instance, replaced. Seth is the replacement son. In time, Seth has a son, Enosh, which means people, perhaps leading us to the next phrase. At that time, men, people, Enosh, began to call upon the name of the Lord. Now, is this a hopeful end to the story, that Enosh is a faithful person, or that people are finally returning to God after this horrible Cain incident? The language is ambiguous. Hebrew commentators would tell us that what the NIV, for instance, translated as call upon, people began to call upon the name of the Lord, could actually be translated refer to other things. And the verse would then read, "At that time people began to refer to other things with the name of the Lord," which is to say, this may be the time at which idolatry, the worship of things other than God, begins. Chapter 6 would bear this out. But next time, it's chapter 5 that we'll be reading, and we will see you then.